It is 5 p.m. on July the 27th. I call to order this meeting of the Lancaster Select Board. First, a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and broadcast courtesy of the Sterling-Lancaster Community Television, so we thank them. And we'll do a roll call before the meeting commences. Mr. Allison? Here. Ms. Turner?
Here.
Mr. Kerrigan? Here. Next item is approval of the minutes. We have minutes from June 22nd. Is there a motion to approve?
I will not be participating in this because I was not at that meeting.
Okay.
So,
Is there a motion to approve the
Move to
minutes
approve the select board meeting minutes of August 16, 2022.
of June 22nd, 2023?
Oh, I'm looking at a bad packet. So moved.
And I will second that. All those in favor? Mr. Allison?
Aye.
Mr. Kerrigan? Aye. Ms. Turner? I'm assuming you are abstaining. Okay. So it is 2-0-1. All right. Now we will open up for public comment. As is our rule of thumb, anyone in the room can go first. We give folks 2 minutes, as we all know. We used to ask folks to speak kindly of one another, and the Supreme Judicial Court told us you can say whatever the heck you want. So have at it. You just have less time to do it. So anybody in the room who would like to make their way to the podium can. If not, we will turn to our guests on Zoom, and then we will conclude our public comment. Anybody in the room?
Shout-outs?
Can you do shout-outs? It's a public comment. You could read a recipe. It's fine.
Okay.
But you got to do it from over here.
All right.
Add name and address, please.
Sherry Cutler, 67 Harvard Road, Williamsburg. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to, it's not why I'm here, but just give a quick shout out to the Lancaster Police Department. I've been following them on social media like I normally do. And I don't know if people are aware that they had this junior police academy. And I thought it was absolutely amazing. And you can find it on their social Facebook page, Lancaster, Massachusetts Police Department. So I was following them, so between them and the fire department, it just seems so, just a great community thing. And then Chief Moody.
Through community services.
It was great, and then Chief Moody posted today, I don't know if you saw it, all the kids give suggestions on how to stay safe while driving. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the police department, the fire department, and for their work doing that junior police academy. That was
Well
great.
done. Perfect. What a
And,
lovely public comment.
Just so you know, our town clerk's son gave Chief Moody a ticket for not stopping fully at a stop sign.
Oh, well, there you go. That's, thank God we have vigilant youth in our town.
Not vigilante youth.
That's that too. All right, anybody on Zoom, please raise your digital hand. Kara Sanford, I see you've got your digital hand up. You have been allowed to unmute yourself. Please state your name and address, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. So, Kara Sanford, 350 Bull Hill Road. I'm here to appreciate and thank Tom Christopher personally for his longtime service to the cause of conservation. If this planet has a chance to survive with a quality of life that's bearable, it's because pragmatic people like Tom can navigate a path through development and nature coexisting. He was an excellent Concom chair and planning board member. Tom ran his meetings with a caring and classy blend of expertise. He has retired in this role, and I would like to thank him from the heart. He took a lot of heat and was strong enough as a person to withstand as he tried to do the right thing. So thank you very much, Tom Christopher, and thank you to the select board for allowing me to make that little tribute.
Thank you, Kara. We, if you'll allow it, we attach our names to your kind comments about Tom. He is truly one of the best. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, anybody else hand up? All right, seeing none, that is the end of public comment. On to scheduled appearances and public hearings.
Mr. Chair, may I quickly ask a technical question?
You can, yeah, you just
It's
did.
Alex.
Why no, yeah.
Thank you. Am I able to mute and unmute as needed? Because we have an open floor plan here, and I don't want to disrupt the meeting much. I'm trying to be, I don't want noise coming through the meeting. So can I mute and unmute myself?
No.
No, I don't believe you can, because then everybody
All right.
can,
Okay, well,
yeah. Okay,
mute me if it gets loud then.
will do. Okay, scheduled appearances and public hearings. Introduction of new building commissioner Mike Silva began July 5th, 2023. Administrator Hodges.
We may have to table that because Mr. Silva is,
He's not here to be introduced.
well, he's on inspection.
Well, that's
So
good. We
He's
like
catching
that.
up. We
Okay,
have, he had a pre-planned vacation before he started. So he started and worked for about a week and a half and then was off last week for a trip to Florida with his family. So he's back and playing catch up, and certainly it's not more or less important, but getting
Yep.
through the backlog was
No,
something.
that's.
But he's here, he's 7 days a week. He generally starts early in the morning and is here somewhere between 9:30 and 10 for a bulk of the midday if anybody needs any help, and then does inspections in the afternoon again. And that seems to be working for him. And his new vehicle came in earlier this week, and thank you to Chief Moody for spearheading that endeavor. And that is here, and we will be putting the older vehicle on municipal for scrap because it is not,
Scrap.
well, it is not able to run effectively, and the steering column is held on with duct tape.
Okay. Great, well, we look forward to seeing him when he can make it.
One of the many uses.
That sounds great. All right, next is joint select board FinCom meeting for FY25 budget, Saturday, November 18th, starting at 8:30 a.m. in this room. This is the second year in a row where we will do a joint meeting as we did last year to go through detailed aspects of our budget as we prepare for the next year's budget. Anything further you want to add?
No, sir.
Okay. So anybody who's excited, which should be all of you, be prepared. Put it on your calendar, 8:30 a.m., November 18th, Saturday. All right, town administrator's report. You have several items here. I'll let you roll.
Okay, so the first was I included 2 bills in your package which call for permanent changes and amendments to town-led meetings and town meeting in general. I had alluded to this before. Managers and administrators throughout the Commonwealth are generally in support of this, and I realize we've talked about this before. Essentially, the meat and potatoes are that the body can elect to allow remote participation, so this will continue even through the extension of the emergency remote participation, which was brought on by the pandemic. Members can be remote, and those members can contribute to a quorum. So in the past, it was mixed whether that would create a quorum or not. So that would be a permanent quorum, regardless of whether the member is physically present or on Zoom or some other platform. If members of the committee or board choose to be remote, then the public must also be allowed to be remote. So in the past, some boards and committees might have a member that has to Zoom in for something else, but that would be a closed Zoom. That would no longer be allowable. Documents that are used in remote meetings have to be available to the public during the meeting. That's an interesting one as far as technology that we'll have to explore. For the most part, there's a packet, say, for our meetings, and so the things that you're going over are already there, but that isn't the case necessarily with every board or committee. So I think that there's some training that'll be included in that. And certainly we'll have to designate a place on our website so people can go and get them. We don't have to offer the ability to speak, only observe. Again, that's just a rule, it's not a suggestion. All virtual meeting votes must be roll call, even if you only have one member that's virtual. And should this pass, the Attorney General's office would develop a best practices manual that the towns can review and adopt or adjust accordingly. Changes for town meeting, and this is not just for representative, but also open town meeting, which is our form of government. The moderator is the one who will be after a consult with the select board and town staff, can call for the meeting to be remote or hybrid. So that would fall under the moderator's duties. One of the caveats there is that it has to be technologically capable, and that isn't as easy as just setting up a Zoom. It has to be, we have to devise a plan for members to be confirmed members that are willing and able to participate, meaning that while anybody can come on the Zoom and participate, if they want to vote or raise their hand, we need a mechanism to have a deputy clerk or a deputy moderator have some way of knowing who they are. That is being pushed back a little bit by the town clerks, because now you don't have to necessarily show your identification, and so those two regulations are in conflict with one another. So we'll see what comes from that.
So can I ask you, so this all comes into play if these actually pass the legislature?
Yes, but I mean, I don't know what they're gonna say, but I do know that there's a lot of support for this, because I think it has the ability to have more people participate in their government. I'm just,
No, I see that. I'm looking at, I see the House bill was refiled. The Senate bill seems to be from last session. But it's just totally fine, it can still be taken up. Because it seems it was sponsored by Diana DeSoglio when she was in the Senate.
yeah, so let me see, we got this. They're going to be, so the Joint Committee and the State Regulatory Affairs are having a hearing Wednesday, so
Oh, okay.
Wednesday.
Okay.
And asked for, you know, a bunch of information and support from all of the towns. The next one is that we need to allow for both visual and audio, so if we are going to allow remote capability for town meeting. In the past, the ADA was not clear on whether it just needed to be visual, but it needs to be a two-way communication.
Right.
So that's something we have to plan for.
Again, if this passes.
If this passes, and eligible voters need to be able to receive credentials 48 hours in advance, so people can't sign up sort of at the last minute.
Sure. So I would just say, I appreciate you raising it. I look forward to in-depth conversation when and if it passes. And how we have to fix our meetings. Because my guess is even if it passed this fall, it wouldn't be in effect until next annual town meeting. Because they usually take 180 days to come into effect. Unless they do an emergency preamble, then they have to be right away.
I think they're looking to work with the towns
Yeah.
on a schedule that allows everybody to be reasonable
Right.
about what
Yeah.
they can and can't do. The second is the high school building project. I included a memo in your packet. The school committee has a meeting on Wednesday, August 7th, where they are slated to vote to incur the debt for the project. The estimated budget as of their last meeting is $241 million. The district share is $178 million, which equates to about $52 million for Lancaster. And the latest presentation from the June building committee session is also attached to the memo that's in your packet.
All right, so remind me again when that meeting is?
Wednesday, August 2nd is the school committee
So
meeting.
this coming Wednesday, okay, got it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's August 2nd.
Hold on a second. Any questions from anybody about any of that?
I was just having a hard time hearing, I'm sorry. You said August 2nd as in 2?
Yes, yeah, as in 2. Yep.
Okay.
So just to be clear, there's no requirement of the select board to provide any commentary on any of that, right? That's all school committee driven, correct?
Correct.
Its own board, its own stuff, and we're just here to communicate out to residents.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, just before we get too far ahead, can I just ask a little bit about the remote participation?
You can, although, as I said to Kate, I think it's premature since the legislature hasn't even had their hearing about these bills.
I understand.
So we would be answering questions based on a bill that was written, not one that's been considered even by a committee so far, so.
Yeah, no, but my question was related to that actually, was I read both of the bills, and I think it's great. One of the few silver linings of COVID is the increased participation through remote meetings. So is it beneficial for us to digest this put it on an agenda and take a stand and support it or not for our legislative contingent. I certainly think it opens up a lot for municipalities. We don't want to burden the town clerk, I'll ask about that either, but in regards to general meeting.
It's entirely up to the body if we wish to weigh in on a piece of legislation to our legislative delegation. I don't believe either one of them sit on the relevant committees, but they could, I'm not aware. So yes, we certainly could make a recommendation, but I would suggest that we actually see what comes out of committee before we make a recommendation.
Okay, I think that they, at least I spoke to Representative Kilcoyne and Senator Cronin briefly about it, and I think that might be helpful.
What might be helpful?
If we agree it would be beneficial.
What might be helpful?
I think it might be beneficial as a body if we supported it, because there's a lot to digest, pros and cons. And I think that we can offer them our support. It's more a token, but I think it might be helpful. The other thing is just quick question.
So are you suggesting we take this up at another meeting and make a vote of support or not support?
Yeah, I just look at it a little more and try to garner some input. For example, Kate said that there was some concern from the town clerk, and I can see that. So if we can offer any constructive opinion or any constructive criticism as well, that this might be the time to do it before it's promulgated.
Just to be clear, it wasn't our town clerk.
Right.
It was just that when all of the government bodies got together, the Town Clerks Association just said, if we have to verify folks, we're going to need a mechanism to do that. So we might have to institute allowing or, requiring driver's license or identification cards for remote participants. That's all.
Yeah, I think this is like impossible to, I don't even know, there's so much that's going on in here. There's so much that we'd have to discuss, and there's so much that can change. I don't even know what we would be endorsing.
I would just suggest that we let the legislative process take a little bit more time. Thousands of bills get introduced and then get sent to committee. At least if these bill numbers are accurate, the Senate bill was introduced last session, which is fine. They can still be having conversations about it, but this could change dramatically between now and then, so I'd hate to endorse a certain numbered bill before the committees have had a chance to even weigh in on it. But we could certainly keep our eye on it and have further conversation as the time rolls on.
Okay.
So let's just keep an eye on it after the hearing, and perhaps we can invite the representative and the senator to come in and give us a general legislative update this fall as we prepare for next year. Might be nice to do. Okay. All right. So that was the last item. We've just gone through. Are there any questions about high school building project update before we move on to the next item? Okay.
No, except, thank you for letting us know. Second, what time is that?
I believe it's at 7, but it's hybrid, so you can participate remotely.
Excellent.
Great.
Glad to know.
Okay. Request for proposals currently advertised.
So this is just an FYI, and we didn't include them in the packet, but we did include a link. They're on the town's website under bids and proposals. The townwide master plan and vision for 2035 that is being run through the planning department and then ultimately the planning board. Requests for those proposals are due September 8th. The community center restroom update is running through Health and Human Services. That's a Chapter 30M. That is due 8/2, so the 2nd of August. And phase 2 of the historical cemetery, which is also a CPC project, was bid just right at the end of last week, and that's being administered through Heather Lennon of the historical committee, and those are due 8/31.
Sounds good. Any questions about the RFPs that are currently advertised? Seeing none, Human resources matters, very, a term that in any company might make everybody shake, but human resources matters.
So, Mary Frost, who is our longtime collector
Treasurer, has announced that she will be retiring mid-September, and as devastated as we are, we're happy for Mary. I think she had been bouncing the idea around for a while. Big shoes to fill. Certainly just a very consummate professional, knows everything, the amount of institutional knowledge. She's been gracious enough to give us a lead time of more than a month. So we're advertising for that, and that position closes 8/18, and Mary's last day will be on the 17th of September.
My birthday.
Oh, happy and sad all
I
in the
know,
same
right?
day. So I had updated the job description because, as you can imagine, it hadn't been done since Mary took the office. So there was a few things here and there. She was very instrumental in getting some of the certifications and things that we needed to require in there. So I included that and the ad copy in your packet. Kevin Matrano, who is our recreation coordinator, resigned from his position for personal reasons. So we are currently advertising for that, and Kelly has been evaluating that sort of division as a whole, as it's sort of a startup with the rest of the Health and Human Services staff and a few outside folks. So I'm sure there'll be more to come on that. Again, I included that ad in your packet, and that closes on 8/17. And then the FY24 budget included a budget administration for finance, and we also had a member of the Treasury who was hired to assist at least part-time, and she left the Treasury about a month ago to pursue a full-time job in her hometown. So we have combined those two positions for a new budget and purchasing director, both to help in the things that the Finance Committee and Finance Director had wanted for forecasting, et cetera, and also to lend a hand with procurement. There's a lot of things that the town has procured over the years that is inconsistent with 30B, so we want to make sure that we're doing things correctly and maintaining doing them correctly. So that job description and ad is also in your packet. And that is open until filled.
Okay.
Because we're just not sure what the market will bear for that.
That makes sense. Okay, any questions about Human Resources Matters? Mr. Allison? Ms. Turner?
In general, I have some, but I think it's going to come out more under the Collins Center discussion. So I can pass it on.
Under the what?
The HR study that we're talking about later on on the agenda.
Okay, so you don't know anything about the updates of those particular positions, you just have a Human Resources related question in general.
I think they're related to some of those, but yeah, no, that's fine. I appreciate the update. Thank you.
Okay. All right, now on to administration, budget, and policy. A number of items. Thunder and lightning. FY fiscal year ending report, FY25 budget instructions. Kate.
Yep, so again, there's a memo in your packet on the FY23 fiscal year, and the numbers that are there are not the audited numbers. They're simply what we have from Vadar and Cheryl and I putting our heads together and going through line item by line item. The FY25 budget instructions and capital requests instructions both went out. So as a matter of course, regarding FY23 year end, which I described in my memo, much of the positive balances that we saw there resulted from not hiring or delaying the hiring of staff until we were sure that we'd have the means to pay them for this fiscal year. So those staffing holds equated to about $415,000. I don't expect nor do we want to see that again. Perfect example of that is we just had an assistant town clerk begin, so that position we had held for quite some time. In terms of expenses, DPW saved a great deal by not pursuing some of the tasks and funds that were allocated for. So although that is a different authority, and the conversations relative to that rest with the commission. I don't think that some things like line and sidewalk painting, which yielded a $25,000 savings, certainly can't be deferred for another year. So, well, I'm happy to say that we were very savvy and very strict this year, and we won't discontinue that practice. There are a lot of things that were deferred because we simply didn't know financially where we were going to end up. So in terms of a more careful and purposeful look at how and when we use IT, we've actually gone through that, or my office has gone through that, and determined what had been authorized in the past and if those authorizations were consistent with the union contracts. And so there was a meals coordinator position that was also funded through the community center, but it was designated as an expense rather than a personnel. We didn't fill that position, but we rolled that into the social worker position. So we're still providing those services, but that's a $12,000 savings. So those savings, particularly overtime and the meals coordinator, were already not included in this budget that we proposed and passed in May. And so as we come to see more savings and those things come to realization, you'll see that we're trying to continue those trends.
Okay.
In terms of the budget instructions, the FY25 budget instructions for capital and general fund were provided to the staff on June 9th and July 13th, respectively. Capital requests were received last Friday, and we are beginning to aggregate them for review. The initial general fund requests are due back on September 13th, and we're asking for both a level service and level funded numbers, at least to begin the conversations.
Okay.
Questions, concerns?
So, any questions about that? First, well, before I ask for questions, I will say, given the uncertainties of budgeting, I think this was, as I've said throughout the entire year, an incredibly well-managed budget process and budget result. Luckily, because of all the reasons you just articulated, there was some savings realized. I think that's something to celebrate and adjust for, but I'm grateful for you running, you and Cheryl and all the department heads running a really strong process. Grateful to the Finance Committee for their guidance and the hard work that they did for this and what they'll be doing for the next year. So I'm thankful for the update and for the result of the previous year. And I'll ask Mr. Allison if you have any questions.
And for me.
Ms. Turner, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. Thank you for the recap, Kate. It was good. A couple of things. I know I saw on, I can't remember, roughly 400,000 savings, a small one, but was the refund from, was it OpenGov?
Yeah.
And that's good, because I know that there was issues with that. When I've been doing my homework for later on in the agenda, a lot of towns are using some sort of software like that to help with budgeting, transparency, all that. Did we budget, or do we have any interest in, not necessarily OpenGov, but one of the competitors or OpenGov or something like that? Because it seems to, from all reports, save a lot of personnel costs and have some excellent templates for budgeting and be excellent for the department heads and so on to work with. I've heard rave reviews about them.
So is it a software that helps?
It's there's many different functions, but integrates all the functions. Primarily, a lot of towns are using it for example, Kate's budget book that was so good.
Yeah.
Everybody puts their information in, and it will it's set up different templates and so on that are consistent to try to save some staff time and so on. It seems like a very strong tool that many towns are already using and many towns are adopting. I just didn't know I know we saved on that, and that was a smart thing to do because it hadn't been done appropriately.
So I would,
and now that we're beginning the budget process now, I didn't know if this was in the budget and if we could do anything with it.
So I would, before Kate answers, I would just suggest it seems like it's a solution in search of a problem, given that we managed to do a strong, effective budget process without it, without that expenditure. But I also yield to Kate to make those decisions about what software the town departments may or may not use. Jason, do you have any questions?
Alex, if you could email me the towns, I'll reach out to the town administrators and talk to them and ask them about their experiences.
Sure, if you want to, yeah.
Great. That to me definitely falls into.
Actually, the question was to Kate, though.
I know, but so that, I mean, definitely, I mean, obviously Kate can answer any questions you'd like, but it seems like an operational question rather than.
Yeah, so what I would ask the town administrators, Alex, is I'd ask them what problems did this software solve? What I heard you say is that it helps reduce time spent by staff, which sounds great. So you said a lot of towns are using it. Just send me the towns. I'll reach out to them myself and I'll hear the stories, and it sounds like it's great. So would love to hear the stories from other towns about how staff time is being saved.
Okay. If we just keep, maybe we could talk about that the next time. The other thing is.
So wait, we'll hear Jason's report from the other towns. Is that what you're suggesting at the next meeting?
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll have another discussion once he gets the information that he'd like to have, and we can talk about it in more depth. I just threw out a question about have we considered it again?
Sure.
I mean, obviously there was merit to rebutting it one time.
Well, but I mean, unless I'm making a mistake, I believe a previous town administrator bought it. That's just not, it's not Kate's, well, I don't need to speak for you, but it doesn't appear to be her cup of tea, and if the system's working, why would we bother messing with it? But again, I don't need to speak for Kate, but.
Yeah, so I guess my only answer to that would sort of be a policy decision that I would look for you all. You know, what I created clearly wasn't using advanced software like that, and so if that's thought of to be better, there are templates, like you said, Alex, where people can go on the town's website and look up things, and it sort of populates stuff. Someone would have to be responsible for putting that data into it. I don't know how much of a heavy lift that is. I suspect if towns are using less staff time, then probably it's not a huge administrative lift. So that would sort of be a goal and objective that you all could give to me, and we would bid it and see how expensive it is.
Yeah.
I think they range from 20,000 to 100,000. So somewhere in the middle is something that probably, or even at the low end, meets what the needs are. I guess I would just need, you know, your opinion, your directive on that.
Alex, when I was researching all of the templates and what other towns used for reports, the gold standard was a gentleman who used to work in Northborough, and he didn't use any of that software. So I would love to hear if there's a movement from grassroots effort from other towns and they're having huge savings. We should definitely explore.
Do you know of any because you said a number of towns, Alex, do you know any off the top of your head, just so we can get a jump on this, that you could tell us now so we can get rolling on reaching out to them?
I'll send, without getting into the weeds, yeah, because there's OpenGov and then there's, what's the other one, Kate? I don't remember, there's two main ones. The
Well,
MMA.
Yeah, I don't think it's the weeds. It just if you just mentioned the number of towns use it. Just rattle off a couple and we can call.
Well, two right off the top of my head, and keep in mind I can't get my thing here, but it's Stowe, Maynard.
Stone Maynard use OpenGov.
They use one of those softwares, and as I said, I can't remember the name of the other one. So anything, I'm trying to make sure that we're using things that free up as much staff time, that they take the tools that she needs, and I know that we had a good reason not to take it out of last year's budget. But if it's something that does that, the other plus is that it integrates with most of the websites, like Civics Plus and so on, and so there's a lot of transparency, which we have all said that we're really interested in. So I think there's a lot of purpose.
Right, but I do want to stop right there, and I know you didn't mean to suggest this, but I think this budget process was the most transparent one in our 370-year history, so I don't want to remotely suggest that there wasn't transparency and that this will solve a problem. I'm just making a comment that I just don't want to suggest to folks that there was not a transparent process and that this would fix a problem that doesn't already exist. So my final comment on this just is, if Kate feels like it's a tool that she needs, It will be a policy decision for us from an expense perspective. I would ask her to bring it forward. I look forward to hearing back from Jason, but
So real quick, so Alex, what I heard you say is, Alex, I heard you say that OpenGov or some other is used by Stowe and Maynard? Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to reach out to them and find out if it saved cycles, but we do not, in my opinion, have any issue with transparency. So if that's the objective, I would side with Steve and say that's not something we need to solve.
So, Mr. Chairman and Mr.
Yes.
Allison.
Yes.
I take great exception with you suggesting that I was inferring that. I didn't. If you listen to my comments, I started off by saying that this was very good. I also said there was bona fide reasons not to keep the software that the town had purchased.
Yes.
And I applauded Administrator Hodges for correcting that. So I was, rather than being attacked for saying that I suggested it's not transparent, I didn't.
Right,
What I suggested was that these are despite the fact that there is procurement issues, that there are also very good reasons to look at this. And I had in my homework some positive experiences with it and offered to send Jason the list.
Understood.
Simple.
Understood. And I just want, I understood. And I would like to clear, and I said at the very beginning of my comment, I know you did not mean to suggest this. So,
I didn't.
I know, so, hold on, excuse me. So you then coming back and saying that you took umbrage to the fact that we were suggesting it, I literally said at the beginning of my comments, I know you didn't mean to suggest it. So now we're beating a dead horse. We will do this research and circle back.
The most important question I have when we get to we're talking about the budget, and thank you for getting,
So I'm sorry, so are we still on this, or do you have another question related to the budget? I thought we'd moved on.
I have another question related to the budget.
Okay, go ahead.
And I'm not sure where in our suggestion tonight that it should fall, but I'm sure you'll correct me if it's in an inappropriate place.
I'll do the best I can.
Thank you. Thank you, Kate, for getting the budget materials out to people and started early. That is part of what helped last year's budget come together so well. One of the aspects when I am budgeting municipally or privately is looking at revenues. And in the past budget cycles, not recently, we had policy discussions about revenue projections. And it's very hard to predict some of them, especially things like state aid or school things. But there are some, for example, I think that myself, maybe the board will agree, that while we would like to have enhanced revenue from Sterling-Lancaster, it's probably not going to impact this year's budget or the next couple. But having things like, what we used to do, and I think it was very beneficial, was have some of things like the building inspector, police, fire, some of them more, the department heads that had a good handle on what their revenues may be and talk about them and talk about other options for what we could do or if we were expecting a downturn in revenue, which sometimes does happen for all kinds of reasons.
Okay.
So I think that would be really important because we've talked about setting either a level services budget or Steve, can I just finish? Do you mind?
You can. I wanted to answer your question.
Okay, if I finish, that would be helpful. So setting a level services budget, I'm sorry, Kate, what was the other option?
Level funded.
Well,
Thank you.
see, but I want to step in at this moment and say, those aren't the only options. Like, I don't want us to leave this meeting suggesting to the taxpayers or the residents of the town that we're already in the phase of deciding level services or level funded budgets. And I would suggest...
The instructions that Kate just mentioned that went out to the department heads.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so is your question complete?
Yeah, my request was could we insert a meeting with the finance committee to discuss, and department heads if we need to, similar to what we do once we've already received the budgets, but to discuss revenue, because the first step is seeing how much we actually are going to be able to work with.
So I would say a couple of quick things, and then I'll ask Kate to clarify anything I've missed, and then we'll move on to the next thing. First, we do hear about revenue projections from departments. We use historical information to make guesstimates for building permits, things like that, for other town-related revenue. As we all know, oftentimes, including this year, we didn't get our state revenue numbers until after our town meeting, which happens to most towns in the Commonwealth. So that is very difficult to predict. So we can have so I feel like we already get that information, and so we can continue to have more iterations of that same conversation if you'd like. But I would say a revenue prediction now is what they use in their early stages of budget planning, but it is basically like throwing spaghetti at a wall. Like you're just guessing entirely. And I think, and I know later in the agenda, you've asked several times to put on the agenda vendor fees and fairground usage fees. And I know you've brought that up as potential more revenue, and we'd love to have more revenue coming in. But I just want to make sure we place the importance on this in the process that is necessary. Kate, do you have any follow-up or clarification on that?
The only thing, and this was something that we tried to educate folks on during the budget process last year, is that when we're projecting revenue, which we call local receipts for the budget, we're only permitted to use the year prior's balance. So if somebody were to, and I'm using a very rudimentary example here, but if someone were to call the town and say, we had somebody that was going to move and they hit the lottery and they'd like to donate $5 million to the town as a donation or what have you. We actually, and until that check is brought in, cashed, and then in the bank account, as it were, we're not allowed to count that. Even if somebody were to promise that in May, we have to set our budget with the numbers from the year prior. So what happened this year is we had an additional $200,000 in local receipts from some development projects, and it ended up contributing to our amount of free cash that we have this year. We can use that extra 200 when we're budgeting this year if we believe that we're going to see that same amount of development, but we can't say it's going to be $1 million more because we don't have any way of making sure that, or the state isn't sure that it's there. It really is a cash in hand thing.
Can I ask a question?
Does that answer it? I don't know.
It answers, it's the same clarification you've provided before, so I appreciate that. But it's always good to get the reminder for folks. My one question that just popped up from that is, if we were to change the rates for permits, could you put the new calculus of the rate change into, or it just has to be the raw number from the previous year? Could you be like, there were 5 permits that were $1,000 a piece, but now they're $1,200, so we could guesstimate, $6,000 versus $5,000? If you did
it mid-year, so if
Yeah.
you were to change them next month,
Right.
that would be realized during
This fiscal year. Got it. Okay, makes sense.
But it wouldn't be dollar for sure.
Right. Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. DCAM Property, General Update Environmental Assessment Project. That would be you.
That is me,
Yep.
yes. I'm sorry, I was flipping the.
Yep.
Okay, so, sorry, let me just get to my notes on this, because this one was strange. Wait, did you miss one?
I did not.
Oh, you did not?
I did not
No,
miss
I'm sorry.
I'm glad to
So-
go on to something else.
Yeah, no. So we've been working with Mass Development and the subcontractor BSC, as you know. I'm gonna share my screen if that's
That sounds fantastic.
permissible, just because I don't know whether this is helpful, but hopefully it is.
Okay,
Hopefully everything is popping up.
find out.
Okay, so I guess these are pictures of the parcel of land, which is part of the DCAM property, which is known as the piggery, if that makes any sense to anyone. So, BSC has been looking into, first of all, we were delayed for a couple of weeks because BSC had to get a separate access agreement from the state for the DCAM property in order to have persons that were not associated with the town or mass development access it. So we're about a month behind after DCAM's lawyers went through all of that. So in the meantime, BSC started with a look through the registry of deeds and some of the other more in-depth GIS features that they have. And what they found out is that based on the GIS layers, the entire area of the piggery is conservation open space. That's not anything that we didn't know. What I certainly didn't know, and it isn't on our town registers, is that it also has conservation protection in perpetuity, which survives any sale or trade. And it also is Article 97 land. And on top of that, it's in an area, the ACEC, so it's a area of critical environmental concern, which is right here. And so part of, and I don't know if you recall, but if you do, part of what we're looking at here is only 20 acres of a 100+ acre parcel that's over there. So the 20 acres that that are currently part of the legislation, give or take, outlined right around here. And not all of that is in Lancaster. The idea of doing anything other than to keep this open space and preserved, I think is ill-advised. And I think that spending any money to prove something to the contrary is likely wasted money. Just having walked it with them. Right now, the piggery property has a barn/workshop there that has no running water, no electricity. It's just a structure. We couldn't run any utilities there anyway because we just wouldn't do that through the ACEC. And so the idea is that when we get the legislation back, when we get the legislation back, that the town should likely enter into another negotiation with DCAM to remove these 20 acres, and it will just remain protected Chapter 97 state land.
Yeah.
That would be my suggestion at this
Yeah,
time.
no, I played a lot of flashlight tag in that part of the property as a young man.
Did you say flashlight
I
tag?
did, yeah. That was the 80s, crazy time. So no, I totally understand that. My question is is the state looking to offload all of it and make it our responsibility, or would they be willing to take it back? But that's a question for another time. But,
Yeah, I mean, I'm only talking to one of the DCAM reps
Yeah.
who fully understands that they'd rather have us take some, and what I don't want is, the problem is the way that it's written is if we take it and we do nothing with it, it becomes municipal, we have to pay the
Right.
purchase price. So
oh, I see.
when we calculated it for an open space, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe $350,000 to $400,000
That we would
for
have to
it
pay
to do nothing,
yeah.
versus leaving it with the state for it also to do nothing.
Could it be designated conservation and go with the bid for whoever does the development of the larger parcel, but remain open space, so that we don't have to pay it, but,
So the only way that it can remain with the conservation restriction is if the property is held by either the state or the municipality. So if the contractor buys the whole thing, the contractor would have to gift this, quote unquote, to the town as an open space parcel. And in that case, we have to pay the state.
we still have to pay the state, even if it's a gift.
Yeah, for 30 years. So he could gift it at 31 years,
Right.
he or she.
Yeah, they.
They.
All right, well, I look forward to saying what.
Well, so I just, one of
Do
the
you need
things
a
is
vote?
that, well, the
Right.
contract that we have with BSC, which you all voted upon
Yep.
in May, had this as part of it, and I'd like to alter.
Had this parcel.
Correct, and I'd like to alter the contract to remove it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like belt and suspenders, it would be good to have permission to
Yeah,
remove it,
that sounds
since
good.
what I presented you in May was different.
Yep. Okay, is there a proposal for a motion? Or a motion in general?
I'll offer a motion to remove this parcel from the contract with BSC.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion?
Is that motion satisfactory?
Sure.
Yeah, I do. A couple of questions. In response to what Chairman Kerrigan was saying, Steve, I think we assumed that this would remain open space because it's so, first of all, it's protected, and second of all, it's so wet that it's not viable to do much else with it. But the value, we couldn't, other people can own protected land, but it's just that it can never be, nothing can be done with it. Am I wrong on that? I mean, so if a developer wanted to build housing, for example, and have a certain amount of open space as an offset, they could not use that? Is that what you're saying?
So I didn't know that you all knew that this was protected, like Article 97, and that it was conservation in perpetuity, so.
I mean, I will say, I didn't know the
Okay.
details of it. I knew it's very wet land.
I knew it was
I knew it's
wet.
very wet land. I knew it was unlikely to be buildable. I just assumed it would stay on the periphery of the project, but I didn't realize that we'd have to end up paying for it.
And you can't build in ACEC. People don't understand that sometimes, but you can. So what was the,
So, I'm sorry, let me try to understand the question. So you're saying if somebody, some entity came in and purchased all of the acreage that is currently in the bill, which includes this, why, is the question, why couldn't they just keep it as open space? Meaning they own it?
Yeah, because they can own.
yeah, oftentimes there's an offset. Like if you're doing a mixed-use development, that a certain percentage of it should be kept as preserved open space. Now, where it's already preserved, I don't know if it really does have any big.
Yeah, so when they do that, usually it's then a sort of a donation or it's deeded to the town. So some of the subdevelopments that we have in town have sort of an open space feature. And if you were to pull up the GIS, you could see that, Town of Lancaster or some other Lancaster board or commission are the technical custodians of that property. So what I'm saying is, if that were to happen here, and the town is the custodian of this property, we'd have to reimburse the state for its value in full, which is something that we can do. I just, for right now, was just asking that we just not have BSC look at it because we know that it's just gonna remain.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
All right, there's a motion and a second, and any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Mr. Allison?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Kerrigan, aye. 300. Congratulations. You get your amended contract.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Now, we get to move on, lucky us, to our next agenda item, which is special town meeting and special election calling.
Okay, so this kind of goes back to under the town administrator's report with the high school building project, but the school committee, like I said, is scheduled to vote on August 2nd. After the MSBA Board of Directors approves the project and authorizes the project scope and budget, the district has to secure the local funding within 120 days. And so what that ends up doing is it gives us about a month or so to call a special town meeting and subsequently to schedule a special election, which would be necessary if any of the three communities voted down the debt article in the special meeting. So when talking to the other administrators and looking at holidays and timeline and our printing deadlines for the warrant, it appears that Monday, September 18th would fit both the timelines that we need for regulatory and what they need for securing, with a special election date of 9/25 if needed.
So that special election would be a week later?
The following Monday, yep.
Kate, do you know, has Stowe or Bolton scheduled already, and do you know when, if they have?
Yeah, they're gonna do the 18th and the 25th. It's the same days.
Well, then that makes sense.
And I believe what is going to happen is that the school committee and building committee members that are the representatives from each of the towns will be making the presentations
Okay.
At the
at
time.
the town meetings.
So I'm sure it's, well, I don't know, but the 25th is Yom Kippur. But there are elections on Yom Kippur all the time, so. Okay. So do we need a motion to move those things forward, or you just make us aware of it and we'll vote on it later?
Well, no, I think you probably have to call it and vote to open.
Okay.
And so, you know, when we open the warrant, there are likely going to be other things, and I think there'll be some town articles that will come in. I know that there's.
So is that 2 votes to call and then to open the warrant?
Yes.
So is there a motion to call a special town meeting for the evening of Monday, September 18th?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Discussion real
Oh,
quick.
discussion.
So procedurally, if we do call a meeting,
Any and all citizens petitions may go on the warrant,
Correct.
That's-
and we
that would
can't
be-
preclude them.
We cannot.
That motion.
That's
Sorry,
true.
Jason, why can I keep?
That'd
So
be the motion.
it was just a procedural question on what, like, how it works. So once we open the warrant, any and all citizens petitions are allowed.
Yes. Well, provided they meet the,
Yeah, I was just curious.
Yep.
Procedurally, because there could be implications for all of this, that's all.
so I'll say, is there any discussion about the question of calling a special town meeting? We can have more discussion on
What's the question
the
about
opening
calling?
of the warrant,
Why
which
not
we'll have to do
call
at the
it?
next,
I'm good, thank you, sir.
any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of scheduling a town meeting for Monday, September 18th, signify by saying aye. Aye, 300. Now is there a motion to open the warrant for said special town meeting of September 18th?
And that's what we want, to open the warrant now?
We have to.
Second.
Okay, now is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of opening a warrant for a special town meeting on Monday, September 18th, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, 300.
Any election.
And next, is there a motion to schedule a special election for Monday, September 25th? I'm assuming with the hours being 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., election to be held at the Old Town Hall.
Also correct.
Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second.
Go. Any discussion on the matter? Hold on a second, we gotta see if the board has discussion, and I'll yield to you.
Stephen, it seems
Yes.
good merit, could you, as the other towns have already done it, you brought up a good point. Is it respectful or prudent to do that on Yom Kippur?
I mean, elections, it's a question, but I mean, elections happen, meetings happen.
Is it a state holiday?
No.
I mean,
No.
so my question is this is only required if the original town meeting doesn't pass unanimously across 3 towns, correct?
Correct.
So how does that work from like a scheduling standpoint? We pay for everything and then reserve things and then may not need them?
Right, so we would have to pay, well, the school pays, which
Yeah,
ultimately the 3
we
towns
pay,
pay. But, yeah, the printing of the ballots would be the one thing. I think you could cancel the election.
Right.
Why does it need to be a week after? It's supposed to happen between September and December. Why wait a week? Why not wait a month?
I think that's outlined in that MSBA.
It's not required. I'm asking.
Why is it required by the state? I don't know.
No, it can't. I don't think it's required to be a week. It was just required to happen sometime between September and December, was my understanding.
I think the town meeting was required to happen between September and
And then
December.
1 week later is the required.
Not certain.
Oh, because I was trying to think back, this was like in May when I had this conversation, because if it doesn't pass at the ballot, then the school committee has 10 days to revise the project, bring it back to MSBA, have MSBA approve the revised project, which would theoretically be less money because that's
Usually
it's
the
in
main reason
balance,
it doesn't
right.
pass. And then you have to have another
So
either
Jan,
meeting or
that'll-
they do another election. I would imagine they'd just do another election because it's probably easier and they'll get more folks. So that's why it's a week after, because all of that, I believe, has to be buttoned up in November.
So it's not that it's required to, it's just prudent to, just in case.
It's a pretty tight timeline.
So my question, so just a clarification for folks paying attention at home and in the room, if on September 18th, all 3 towns vote unanimous vote to approve the project, there is no election. If they do not vote, if it's 2-1 or 1-2, whatever it is, the election takes place, and then all of the votes are counted as an aggregate. So it is not Lancaster votes this way. Lancaster could vote 30% in support and 70% against, but the other towns could vote wildly for, and that's it. And they just all get piled in, all the yeses and all the nos. And then move forward. So I just want to clarify for folks that that is the process that we're facing. What Kate is pointing out is if that's then rejected at the town ballot, the school committee has a chance to go back, revise it, and bring it back yet again for another just ballot vote. So is there any questions or comments about that?
I get it now.
So Chairman Kerrigan,
Yes.
when we first had the overview of this project, Superintendent Downing came in and gave us the overview.
Yes.
I recall that process that you just recapped. I thought that the second election, and that I know there's a press for time, was to be held at Neshoba by all 3, and that they did that, those towns?
No, it's at their expense. It's not at the building. It's at their expense. Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't, I misunderstood him then. The other question was, will we be having, as we traditionally do, early voting and all that? Because that's going to back up a couple of weeks too.
I mean, if the Commonwealth requires or allows it, I don't know.
I can find an answer to that. Because it's an election that is paid for from the school committee, so I don't know whether they're waiting. I suppose they would have to print the ballots for all 3 communities well in advance of the town meetings, but
And then do they have to pay the town clerk time if they have early voting?
that's a good question.
Those are good
All
questions. that
things I will ask.
Yeah, those are good questions that we can get clarification of, hopefully before the next meeting,
The
just to inform
superintendent
folks.
is coming to the next
To the next
meeting.
meeting, exactly. But it's prudent that we vote to, well, if we choose to have a special election, that we do that now, but we can get clarification for us and for the residents before the next meeting. Any further discussion on the motion to schedule a special town election for Monday, September 25th? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Allison, Ms. Turner, Mr. Kerrigan, aye. 300.
As a related question to this discussion, I know, for example, just at the planning board meeting this last week, are there boards and commissions that will be submitting for the special?
Jason asked the question just moments ago that once we schedule a special town meeting, can people put things on the agenda and people can submit? We'll have to decide, the warrant is now open, people can submit things for the warrant, we have to then as a board approve the warrant as we always do, but the normal process will commence.
Do we want to put a day that we close it out yet, or not?
We've typically done that later, I think, but
Yeah, you could close it as early as
next meeting.
your next
but-
meeting, right? Good. We can't close it yet because the school
Right.
needs to, right, exactly.
Okay.
We need to see how they vote or
Yes.
if they table it.
Right.
and-
Okay. Great. Next item is a butter lot sales program draft parameter review and acceptance.
So at annual town meeting this past May, the abutter lot sales program was adopted, and included in your packet is a draft of a program outline. This has been vetted by the appropriate town staff, including the assessor, treasurer, collector, finance director, and the planning department. Page 3 of this has 2 items in need of the select board's input or suggestions. And those include a recommended price per square foot and a deposit amount percentage to be included with somebody's interest to purchase paperwork. So our principal assessor gave me some information if the board is interested on the thought of how much the per square foot.
Yeah. I would love to know the thought process behind building the number.
So she says, from an assessing view, our current rate per square footage would vary from $1.15 per square foot to $1.72, depending on the neighborhood, for a primary buildable lot, which would cover the first 2 acres. Anything over 2 acres would be considered residual, and the rate would be 14 cents a square foot. So, and the land values have not changed much. Now, that said, these are not traditional buildable lots. They're butter lots, and there's a threshold that is far, far below 2 acres.
2 acres, right.
So I don't know whether the board wants to take some time to think about that. I'm certainly happy to invite our principal assessor and any members of her board to the next meeting to have a conversation, but.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'd love to just be able to posit some questions or pose some questions to her, but I mean, it makes the how we reach that number makes total sense to me, and I don't know if the board is prepared to accept the number now. If we want to have them at the next meeting, we can certainly have that discussion.
So I didn't put a number in, and the number.
No, I know, but what you were just talking about.
Okay, so you mean
yeah.
like the dollar?
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever it is. Yeah, so I think Littleton's is $1, Springfield comes closer to $2, $3, closer to the Cape, they have
Yeah.
$5.
Yeah.
I haven't seen much more larger than $5.
Why don't we have them come to the next meeting, and then we can make a determination after that. Okay? All right.
Through the chair?
Sure.
The chair, I have some questions. Okay.
So I will just ask, are these questions that will be better addressed to the principal assessor who will come to the next meeting, or?
Yeah, no. Right now, but no, that's okay. So just, Kate, those examples you threw out were great. Thank you. If you have anything like that, that would help too. Because the assessors can help us value, but just to see how other communities are doing it, you know, if there's, I don't know if they're best practices, I guess there are other practices, right? We don't know who's best. But that'd be great. The other thing is that one of the provisions that wasn't highlighted for us to review, but as I was reading the document, it says that, and I guess this is true with all of other sales programs, or a lot of them, is that only the direct abutters can bid on it, so it excludes everybody else. And in some communities, Worcester, Boston, Gloucester, where I'm sitting now, some of the small parcels, especially if it's in a relatively urban area, are sometimes of interest to the community to get together, and they have like a shared community space. There's a thing here called Backyard Growers, which has community gardens. So as a private organization, a nonprofit, they have a little garden space. And they would be excluded from that in this. So I suppose there's a couple ways, and I was wondering how we could handle it, is either not put it out, or put it up through a different lot sale program.
You put it up through the general town lot sale program, which is different than this.
Than the abutter.
So it's like it's basically an auction. And so what would happen is, once this is approved, a list of parcels would then be generated that I would bring back to the board, and you can determine which parcels you want to exempt from being recommended as part of this program to town meeting, if one of them meets a need that may not be one of the people that is eligible under this program.
So I'm not trying to be fresh. How would we know? Would we just, from talking to each other and someone say, well, this might be of interest to more than just the abutters?
Well, so, yeah, so my thought would be, when I bring back the number of parcels that may be eligible under the program, it would be attached to a map, and I would think maybe the board would want to ask members of the community if there was any interest in anything on the map, either at a forum. I think you could have a bona fide hearing if you want. Certainly, you could do that before the list is placed on any town meeting warrant. You could have it just as part of the warrant review. So if somebody says, I see parcel XYZ, but have you considered that it could be used for, and they say some purpose, you could remove XYZ from the warrant article, I think.
Okay. Okay, thank you, that's helpful.
Okay. Next item is classification and compensation study, the Collins Center.
Yes, so the class and compensation study conducted for the town is more than a decade old, and it was done by a volunteer group who were part of a personnel group in town. And obviously much has changed in the workforce, and through union negotiations with 4 unions at the time, 3 now, competitive wages have been, a number one concern. So I had reached out to the Collins Center because they do a great deal of this work, and they are through Mass Municipal Association and UMass Boston for their Government Studies Center. They do a lot of the class and comps. As a matter of fact, I included the scope there that has pages and pages of other communities that they've done this for. So I also included my memo with what I would consider the town benchmark positions. Now I'm bringing to your attention that there are things that I listed there that are not current town positions. For example, we have a DPW superintendent, but the idea to mainstream that as a DPW director, does that fit the same job description? I don't know.
Right.
So those are things to look at. Right now, we don't have a human resources director, but we probably should have a generalist at some point.
Right.
So those are things that are added on there. So August 1st is the new round of the HR Best Practices Community Compact, and UMass Boston through Collins works very closely with the compact, and so I'll be applying for that grant to use those funds for the study. And the grant covers also any revisions and edits needed for job descriptions, because a lot of the job descriptions that we have either don't exist or they're very, very old,
Right.
and they make references to even to typewriters and other things that we just don't use anymore.
Right.
So
Copy. Okay. Do you need a motion from us on any of this?
I think it would certainly be helpful as I go to apply for the grant.
Sure.
Obviously the Collins Center hasn't started yet, but
All right. Is there a motion to approve
Go ahead.
working with the Collins Center on our class and comp study?
I do have questions. Would you like, do you prefer to have
Well, first I want to ask, is there a motion?
after?
And then we can have any questions as part of the motion if there is a motion. If there isn't, it's a pointless question. But is there a motion?
So moved to approve working with the Collins Center regarding wage deals.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Now is there any discussion on the motion?
Yeah. So, the Collins Center does a great job. They really understand it. They've done a lot. In fact, I don't remember who did the last time the Personnel Committee did the classification review, they used some consultant. I thought it was the Collins Center, but it could have been somebody else. I don't remember who. So if this is based on the information you provide to us, it looks like it's going to cost about $25,000, which we hope to get from the Community Compact grant.
correct.
If we don't get it, I'm assuming you try again another year. Is that I know typically they do fund these. We don't have, it's not budgeted, right? So it's,
Well, yeah.
so it has to be a grant, I'm assuming.
Well, we can use our discretion to use resources if necessary.
Okay. And I looked at the list. Your explanation helped because there was positions in there that I didn't know existed. I guess so you're saying you're forward-thinking things that may come up. Some of the ones that were not in there, yourself, Kate, you want to make sure you're well taken care of. I thought there was a lot of other ones in your office, but I didn't see TA in there. I think you answered the budget and purchasing manager earlier in the evening. So
Yep.
that's hoping to combine those other jobs.
So the TA isn't included in there because the TA is a contract position by statute, and so it's not covered by the bylaw.
Because the select board could choose to compensate you with whatever we choose to in a contract.
Or not.
Or not.
But like we have finance directors in there, and she's there's a lot of contracts, right?
That, so I don't know how far you want me to get down the road, but the bylaw that we have is going to require multiple steps to get away from contracted employees that by statute should not have
And
contracts.
the finance director has special acts of 2006 to define that whole department.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. So this motion is just to authorize us to do this. If we have any further questions, we can certainly do this, but this will be certainly a long process.
No, I do, that's what I was just questioning before that. So, Kate, how do we talk about this if we want to, because I realize these questions come in regards to the motion, but they're general questions. Other ones that we may want to look at, or how we want to do it? What's the process?
What do you mean? What do you mean
Well,
other ones we may want to do? What are you talking about?
Well, for example, and this is totally up to Health and Human Services, but there was, which we also talked about earlier, the nutrition department bringing, meals in, whether or not we want to use the kitchen upstairs, whether they want to have somebody to run that or not.
Well,
There's just other positions.
So these are benchmark positions.
Right.
So this isn't deciding what positions we have in our town. It's,
You would use we would use personnel-wise, we would use the schedule that they set up that has a rating system for where people rank as far as grade classification. And so then, if you were gonna include a position that isn't currently listed, you would look at both internal equity and the grading system. So if it was a nutritionist, for example, what are the qualifications for that position? Educationally, years of service, that kind of stuff, and which one of these benchmark positions does it most align with? And then that will give you an equal way to pay someone.
All right, so it's not restricted to the sample list that we have.
Right, because these are so what you do is you pick benchmark positions, about 50, that conceivably most communities have and employ. So they're common titles. And lots of communities have different things that they call. So if we have a social worker / activities, a lot of communities call it an outreach worker. But theoretically, they're about the same. So you would just take like positions.
Okay, thank you.
great. All right, there's a motion and a second to authorize working with the Collins Center. We're doing the grant and working with the Collins Center on class and comp. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Mr. Allison, Ms. Turner,
Aye.
and Mr. Kerrigan, aye. 300. Thank you. New classification schedule, public safety officials, provisional adoption per personnel policies, bylaw regs.
Okay, so there's a schedule that's called the Public Safety Wage Schedule that is in your packet. In June of this year, the fire union decertified, leaving the group by default under the town's bylaw. The bylaw, as adopted at town meeting, has a classification and compensation scale that neither matches nor is appropriate for fire or emergency services. So the bylaw portion as written refers to personnel policies which govern non-union workers. However, public safety and the current scale and those policies also don't fit. So on page 12 of our personnel policies, which you adopted in May, it says, quote, "In the event it is determined that a new or changed position requires the establishment of a position classification not included in the classification plan, the select board may temporarily authorize the TA to add the new titles to the comp plan and include it for ratification at the next town meeting. So therefore, I'm asking that you authorize the supplemental scale, and this scale exactly mirrors what the wage scale was in the union contract. And then I am hopeful to bring it as a warrant article at special town meeting so that we can make sure that all of these folks are being paid appropriately and legally.
Sounds good.
You want a motion for that?
I do.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the town administrator to have the appropriate wage scale put in place for the decertified fire union.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Quick questions. So the existing fire force that is no longer part of the union, but will be on the scale, and it sounds like it's the same scale that existed. Do they all, because it's a new scale and new to them, so do they go back to the beginning, or what happens to people? Because we have a lot of people who have been there for a long time, and certainly we want to retain them, so you wouldn't want a reduction.
So my
Separate.
assumption is that this, and Kate can correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole entire point of doing this is to maintain them at the levels that they're at.
Correct.
So you bring them in at the level that they would have been at if they were in the union still. No loss of funds, no,
No reduction in pay.
Giant increase of funds.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Mr. Allison?
Aye.
Ms. Turner? Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Kerrigan, aye. 300. FY '25 Community Compact Grant.
We talked about
We talked about
Yep,
that already?
Sorry, I don't know.
I was wondering whether that was a new version of that. The Regional Dispatch Center updates.
okay. And Alex, I emailed you this, just because I got it quite recently, but, the town of.
Sorry.
The town of Boxborough is interested in joining the regional dispatch. We meaning the executive team, so the town administrators from the communities that currently participate, voted to temporarily allow them a 90 days, of which is coming to a close. The woman, Ann Camaro, who runs the dispatch center, has said that their call volume is very low. Things have worked out quite well. She is advocating that they become a permanent member. Many of the select boards from the other towns have met and voted on it as a matter of course. I asked the police chief, the fire chief, and the finance
Director, who then in turn asked the finance committee, all are in favor. I assume this will have some savings, although not hugely significant because Boxborough is small, but adding another community in, which would bring us back to the level that we were at before Air left. So
Sounds good.
I don't know how that works because it says that the TAs vote, but I would
Let's just give it a
appreciate
blessing, shall we?
your vote.
Yeah.
So
Let's
that-
give it a blessing.
And our vote is tomorrow, so
Sounds
that you
good.
know.
All right, is there a motion to encourage the TAs to allow Boxborough's permanent status in the Neshoba Valley Regional Dispatch District?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Mr.
Discussion.
Allison?
Without looking, can either of you say what BOLO stands for?
Be on the lookout for.
How did you know what BOLO was?
I have a criminal justice degree.
Oh my God.
Boom.
That's a fun fact.
Right. So there.
I had to look it up. Thanks for ruining it.
I also watch a lot of NCIS. But also another fun fact. All right.
It's not quite as fun.
Okay.
Any further
Aye.
discussion? Otherwise, we'll vote.
Wait, sorry.
Yeah.
Could you remind us, I didn't realize the air had left and everything, but where are we at? What does the dispatch cost us now?
Somewhere in the, well, actually, I'm gonna get you the exact number here.
All right, so I would,
was gonna say
yeah, I'm gonna call the vote just because I don't
225,
think that's relevant to the vote.
Okay.
She'll get you the answer, but I want to be able to keep this process moving.
Okay, and the other question was just, and it's related to the way we both phrased it, is I think don't we have to isn't there a board, don't we participate in board summer TAs, summer?
Yeah, so that's what they're meeting tomorrow. They don't really need this vote.
Well, I do, because I
She wants
just
the
was not,
blessing,
I was
right.
not comfortable saying yay with everything.
So, let's be very honest, they're gonna vote to add Boxboy as a permanent member tomorrow, so
Yeah, I mean, we can
might as well
vote.
jump on board tonight.
Being picky, I was saying
Yeah.
the board,
Right.
the managing board,
Right.
it's made up of a bunch of
Yep.
different people.
Yep. As she stated earlier, they're meeting tomorrow, so we wanna make sure.
2:25, I was right.
Great. Awesome. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Did
Okay.
you hear me,
225.
Alex? It was 225,000?
Thank you, no, I hadn't heard you. Thank
So
you.
if there's a corresponding decrease that comes after, we would get an updated assessment, and I'll bring that back.
Great.
I just don't know.
And for those paying attention at home, the only reason why there'd be a decrease is because if you add one more person, you divide the general operating expenses among one more community. So it will, people should not expect a windfall. It will just merely be taking that amount of money and dividing it up by one more community.
But it's better than costing more.
It is better than costing more, indeed. All right, next, Memorial School reuse next steps, timeline, tasks, determination, Ray, future use, project planning, assessments, and scope. Jason, you should be on the lookout for this explanation.
Well, so this was tabled, if you recall, from
Yes.
before. So I don't have anything new or updated other than there was money that was put into the capital plan through ARPA to study, and it really was very general. It was for a study of either both a conditions assessment and sort of a master plan. But before, we need to give some direction to whomever it may be about a scope when we go to bid it. And right now, we do have a recommendation for the pavilion, and if that is what the select board wants to move forward with, then I can do it that way. If there's something else that we wanted to look, so that's basically where we're at.
I'd love to work with you on this outside of the meeting to figure out a broader scope, just because I've heard from a lot of residents that they would at least like to look at it more broadly, and I've encouraged them that, look, any sort of engineering analysis will be, yes, can it sustain a pavilion as recommended by the reuse committee, but it also, we would need to do some sort of an engineering study regardless of what reuse we were going to do, so a broader scope, I think, would yield a more data, a stronger data set for.
Do you want some time to work with Kate on this?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think I've just outlined what I would work with her on, is that I'd like a broader scope for it, but perhaps you and I can, and then we can maybe bring it to the next meeting and just have some.
So we're
parameters
looking
around
at
it.
like why am I not clear? Sort of an ideas and pitfalls assessment, so what can't go there because it structurally can't be supported versus what can go there, and then here are the tiers. A
And so then
pavilion
I'd
costs this versus.
And so then I'd love to have an opportunity for folks to hear that, the community to hear that, and then to be able to kick the tires on the reuse. I keep pointing, Sherry Cutler, who was on the reuse committee, is sitting right there. That's why I keep pointing that way, in case we were wondering. What their proposal is, give the townspeople actual chance to ask some really good questions. It's a great proposal, and to weigh in with some of their thoughts as we move this ball forward. But I think that bit of information would be helpful, because some folks may say, oh, I think we should do X, and they'll be determined we should do X, when in fact, from an engineering perspective, we never could do that. So I'd like to get that information, be able to present that to folks, and then have an opportunity for the public to comment on what their hopes and dreams are for the space. Give the committee, who worked incredibly hard and long on this, an opportunity to articulate their pitch on their proposal as well. So again, I know the building's been empty for 20-something years. You guys did great work. The third iteration of the committee, I think, fourth iteration of the committee in 20-something years. So well done, and we won't continue to drag this out much longer, but I think the more information we have behind this conversation for voters and residents, the better off we'll be. Would you like to? Typically we don't, but since I've been pointing at you and referencing you, I'll allow it.
I guess I want to, Sherry Cutler, 67 Harvard Road.
Yeah.
So what, you guys want to get together, you want to talk about it, what happens now?
So what we will do is, at the next meeting, this board will vote the sort of parameters for the engineering review. Kate will work with getting that out to folks. I'm assuming we have to do an RFP for engineering firms. That process will take place. We'll be able to outline at least guesstimates of timelines on that at the next meeting. And then depends on when we get the report back from them, whatever firm we hire, we'll get a report back from them, and then we'll be able to keep the conversation rolling.
Is the engineer study on what we proposed or just in general?
So it's, it will have the information what you proposed, but it'll also look at overall what you cannot do, like, you can't put a skyscraper there, like, there's like things that you won't be able to do.
Yeah.
So it'll look a little bit more broadly. I think it'll help inform the process better than if we just looked at one specific project, but looked at overall what could that space possibly be used for. And we did a good review. I thought it was very helpful. I don't know if you all did in the committee. The legal analysis of the deed restrictions I thought was very informative to folks because there was a lot of confusion about what it was capable for, which I think was very, very helpful and likely supportive of the proposal the committee came forward with, or at least something in that vein. So I think we're continuing to gather that information, give it to folks, and I suspect this fall we'll have a lot of conversations with voters about and residents about how we're going to reuse the space. So my hope is we'll move with all due haste, but
Well, it just sounds like that it's being moved forward to see what's going to be used for the space, and that's what the committee was for, to find out what the best use
committee
is
was
for this.
for making a recommendation
Okay.
to this board.
It was the fourth committee.
Well, I understand that I wasn't around for the other three.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I can just tell you that you get your charge was to make a recommendation of a
Yeah.
proposal. It's this board's responsibility to work with the residents to make sure that they understand that and that we have an understanding of what that building can be used for. You asked, as part of the charge was to get an engineering study. We are doing that. We are just giving them a slightly broader scope to look at the property, because if for some reason there's overwhelming opposition in the town for the proposal, which I don't suspect there will be, for the proposal you do, it would be better for us to, at one swath, get as much information from an engineering perspective than having to go back and look at it project proposal by project proposal. So we'll get a full assessment of what options are available for that space. By no means does that mean we're doing anything other than continue to advance down the path we're already on.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, anything else on that? Okay, what's next? So we're gonna meet and then we're gonna bring this up at the next meeting and get a vote on the parameters for the engineering. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, next item is appointments and resignations. Nominations for the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission Freight Study Guiding Committee Member, Lancaster Representative.
Right,
Yeah.
so,
Do you want to explain that and then?
yep, the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission has been conducting a freight study, mostly focused on Shirley and Air for quite some time. But due to the developments on Route 70 and 117 and the proposed developments for both of those, they've extended one additional year to study the byways and throughways in Lancaster. And they would like a representative from the community on one of the elected boards to be part of this task force in going over, not for the data-driven, but for what the community's pain points might be, what are things, so part of sort of guiding that process. And it was posed to planning, for the planning department, and I think they have a lot going on down there. So I didn't know if,
I'm wondering if, Ms. Turner, if you would like to be our Freight Study Guiding Committee member designee. It's incredibly interesting work.
I was gonna say, yeah, I wasn't entirely sure what this was. Let's do this. I will say yes, but I'd like to talk to them a little bit more about what I can provide, what it entails, and maybe, is there also an option for a designee? But I will say yes, thank you for the,
I have a very large packet. I printed out every email and every study they sent me. So I hope that when you go through that, it might answer a lot of the questions. I knew that you were going to be remote, but not until after you had told us. So I have it and I can put it in the bucket for you to pick up whenever you're free.
All right, thank you, that'd be great. And it looks like they include Lunenburg too, which would probably be helpful. Is that bordering towns?
Yep. All right, so is there a motion to appoint Alex Turner to be our Lancaster rep on the Freight Study Guiding Committee?
So moved.
I'll second that, so you don't have to, because it's awkward to second yourself. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, my life is complete now.
Well, it's as heavy as the head that wears the Freight Study Guiding Committee crown. Thank you for that. Yeah, I don't know what I don't really know what that crown looks like, but heavy as the head indeed. The next is the dissolution of the ad hoc committee for Memorial School reuse. I'm going to ask that we table this, given the timeline, the flexibility. I wouldn't want to dissolve the committee until we have some more direction.
So moved on tabling?
Is that okay with you all? You're not off the hook yet. I feel like on the off chance we end up having some.
I feel like there's some loose threads.
Exactly, yeah. So
moved on tabling?
so it's been motion tabled, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. You're still on the hook.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Is it related to the thing we just voted on?
It's related to the Memorial School Reuse Committee,
Sure.
if that's not the time.
Look, I've been calling on you all evening, so I think it's.
I just didn't know, so we can
Your
hold
name and
another
address.
meeting, right, because we have some outstanding notes.
Name and address.
Oh, Sherry, really? Sherry Cutler, 67 Harvard
It's not my
Road.
rule.
Still the same topic, no, I get it. So we have another meeting, so we'll do that to finish up our notes. Where are we on the legal opinion from town council, and can,
We sent it to you.
It's public record.
yep, nope, I wasn't done.
Oh, sorry.
Can we post it on our notes?
Oh, yeah.
It was being held and it wasn't fully, so now that I feel like it's been read and stuff like that, I just want to know, because we're going to talk about it in our
Yeah.
meeting, and so can we post it with our notes?
We waived.
It's already posted on the
You
website.
waived privilege.
Yeah,
so
we
you
waived
can.
privilege. I think it's already on our webpage, isn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't think,
It might be under the one at the select board.
Yeah, it might be under-
packets,
yeah.
but-
okay, but we can put it
It's a
under
public
our.
record.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, perfect.
Once we waive privilege, then
Just want to
have
be
that.
sure.
I appreciate
Before
that
we
clarifying
dance.
question. You're so kind. Thank you. All right. Next, before we take up this appointment, Susan, thank you
Sorry.
for coming. No, thank you. I would love to an update, Kate, on where we are on the Tax Fairness Committee nominations. And I know the different boards were supposed to make recommendations, and I'm wondering if they have sent any to populate the committee.
So,
Yes, so,
Because Finance Committee was supposed to make a recommendation.
Finance Committee did not yet.
Okay.
Then we have Denise Hurley and Susan Munyon, who had expressed interest, along with Sherry. I'm just trying to see if it didn't make the agenda.
Susan's the only one on the agenda, which is wonderful. We celebrate your willingness to serve. But I want to make sure that we have a level set on what positions we have filled, what are currently.
Denise appeared on the agenda, but with an asterisk, so I wasn't sure what that meant.
She was not on the original agenda. Hers came in after we had posted it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think Sheila Casey was already.
And there
Sheila
she's walking in the
Casey.
door right now.
Yeah, Sheila Casey was the other one.
We were just talking about the committee. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where we're at.
Oh, okay, cool. Good timing.
I know.
So it is Denise Hurley, Sheila Casey, Susan Munyon. You already have Roy Resnick.
Right. And we have 4 at large, right?
And yeah, I want to bring up
Yeah.
just to check.
Yeah, well, we have time. I'm not going to just stare at you awkwardly, even though it appears I was. Denise, how are you?
I'm well, how are you?
So good I can't stand it.
That hardly sounds believable.
If I were any better, I'd have to be twins to contain how good I am.
They're not all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah.
Speaking
My
from
mother was a twin, and I think she would have agreed with that statement.
Okay, here we go. All right, one member of the Finance Committee, so we don't have that yet.
We don't have that
One
yet.
member of the Board of Assessors,
We do not have that yet.
duly recommended by the assessors to the Select Board, so we don't have that one yet. one member of the Council on Aging or Friends of Lancaster Seniors. So so that's Denise.
Are you the representative from the Friends?
Yes.
Got it. So at least we have one designee, thank you. Okay.
And then 4 at large,
One of which has been filled by Roy.
one of which has been filled, and
Susan's here for one of the other ones.
one needs to be over the age of 65, although does not need to say that in public
Right.
session.
I'm not asking anybody anything.
And that is, it. So you have Sheila Casey, is Kelly, I thought I saw Kelly, are you able to unmute Kelly Dolan? I was just curious if Sheila Casey was the COA's nominee.
I think Denise is the,
Well, she's the Friends, so
isn't it COA or Friends?
correct, but I want to make sure, so is Sheila going for an at-large position?
Oh, okay.
Or do we have a conflict?
Can Kelly unmute herself?
No. Who?
Kelly Dolan.
Kelly, you should be able to unmute yourself.
All right, thank you. So we didn't have Nicole at our last meeting, so they weren't able to nominate.
Okay.
Okay, well, now they don't have to.
Yeah, because now she can be an at-large member and you can be the Friends member.
Because she was wondering about that, Sheila, if you guys would.
But that's perfect. So there's 2 people with that. Yep.
I will let her know when I see her in the evening.
And I will follow up with assessors and finance and see if
Please.
they have,
And then we remain, Susan Munyon's very, very sketchy. So should we overlook that and still appoint her, we would then have 1 remaining at-large seat for tax fairness, and then the assessors and the finance committee, yes?
yes.
So I make a plea to the public, if you're interested, there's 1 remaining seat, please send a letter, an email to myself or the town administrator expressing that interest, and we'll consider you at a future meeting. All right, so with that in mind, we have then 3 appointments to make, yes?
Yes.
Is there a motion to,
What is the,
it is to appoint,
what is the term to expire for the Tax Fairness Committee?
it is an ad hoc committee, so it is when the job is
Tax
done.
Fairness is ad hoc?
Yes.
That it was approved at town meeting?
Yep,
Yes.
yes.
Move to appoint Susan Munyon to the Tax Fairness Committee?
Do we want to do all 3 at the same time?
They're different committees with terms to expires and everything.
No, they don't. Oh, no, sorry, there are 2 other names on a revised. So Denise is also for tax fairness.
Where's the revised agenda?
It came in.
Denise,
If it's not
Denise
posted, I
Hurley
don't
and
think we
Sheila
can do it.
Casey.
Yeah, so the motion would be to appoint Susan Munyon, Sheila Casey, and Denise Hurley to the Tax Fairness Committee, with Susan and Sheila being at-large member and Denise taking the COA/Friends of slot.
What is Alex?
That would be the motion.
Sounds good.
I see it posted, so I don't think we can.
What'd you say, Alex? So moved?
Oh,
Thank you. Is there a second?
So, concern is, I don't see,
You make a second and then we can discuss it in discussion.
I'm not going to second.
I will second it and then we can have a discussion. Go
So
ahead.
I don't see the other 2 names posted on any agenda online, which I believe would be an issue procedurally.
I know that they updated it, but
Yeah.
I don't know what happened and why it's not, I just,
Yeah, I'm looking at the posted agenda on the website and I don't see
so,
it. I want everybody on the board, I just don't want some procedural.
Jason, would you not be in my?
the other names,
Yeah, so if I
Alex?
navigate to the Lancaster calendar and I click on select board meeting agenda for 5 PM tonight, I see agenda 7/27/23.pdf. I click on that and navigate to the appointments for the Tax Fairness Committee, I see 1 name.
Okay, thank you. So I understand your concern. So if Susan Minor was on it, then your motion would be, so we have a motion.
Well, we now are in a motion, so now we just,
That's-
you can withdraw the motion, Alex.
I will withdraw the motion.
Okay, thank you. So then, Jason, what I'm hearing is you would be more comfortable if we appoint Susan tonight and the other 2, and maybe 3rd, and maybe a finance committee and an
Yeah,
assessor
this has
at
come
the
up in the
next
past.
meeting. Yes,
Yeah, so
which is
I-
just in 10 days, so. We will be, because you're not listed on the agenda, we will appoint you at the next meeting. But if you have anything you'd like to say about why you want to be appointed, then we're certainly welcome to hear it. That way will save you from having to come back.
So I can say that now?
Well, once we, let's appoint Susan first.
Okay.
I move to appoint Susan Munyon to the Tax Fairness Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Congratulations, Susan. Mazel tov. Denise, you're here. We will take up your appointment at the next meeting, which is August 7th.
Correct.
If you have anything you'd like to say about why you wish to serve on the committee, you certainly can do so now. If not, I will give you the blessing to say, you don't need to come back to the next meeting. You don't need to be present. It's just like a lot of raffles. You don't have to be there to win. So you can still get appointed to the committee if you're not here on the 7th.
I just want to say.
Name and address first.
Oh, I'm sorry?
Name and address?
Oh, Denise Hurley, 102 Bolton Road. I guess I just want to say that this is something very important to me, has been for a very long time, and I'm delighted to be able to serve on this committee to help the folks of Lancaster. That's just what I want to do, so
Well,
thank you.
We appreciate your willingness to serve, and you're already on, so you don't need to say that.
Ditto for the same reasons, yeah.
Does she have to go to the town clerk and be sworn in? So just, they'll reach out to you, make sure, but go to Mandy at some point. Get sworn in. And then we'll take care of you at the next meeting, as well as Sheila. And then maybe again, if somebody else would like to submit, there's still time to be on the
Need one
agenda
more
for.
person?
We need one more at-large person. Yeah.
Well, we need finance assessor.
Yes.
Finance and assessors both, but they're gonna do
Somebody
that.
reaching out to them so they know.
She's gonna do that.
Yeah.
I'll do it to the staff, yeah.
But I'm not, I know it looks like I'm speaking to you all in the room, I'm speaking more to the owl than anybody out there who would like to apply to be on the Tax Fairness Committee. There's one remaining, well, provided we appoint those we think we're going to appoint on the 7th, there will be one remaining seat. All right. Thank you. Sorry for being anticlimactic on appointing you, Denise, but I like your odds on the 7th. All right, Recreation Committee nominations and appointments. Term to expire 6/30/2026.
Move to appoint Sherry Cutler, Jessica Williams.
No.
Well, there's one seat. We have two candidates.
But thanks.
So my question to this board, since this is the first time we're considering these two, is do we, is there a desire to, both submitted information as to why they are interested. I'm grateful to both candidates for their willingness and interest, and both bring an awful lot of value to the committee, or would. My question is, the will of the board, do we want to have an opportunity right now? Sherry Cutler's here, we could certainly ask her questions about her interest. We could invite Ms. Williams. Was she made aware that this was on the agenda? Kate?
Yes, she must have, because she submitted, yeah, that's usually.
So we can certainly make her aware and give her an opportunity to come.
We don't tell people they have to.
Right. If she wishes to.
Correct.
If she doesn't, fine. That being said, if the board has a desire to make an appointment right now, I yield to the board's better angels. Thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, poems, odes?
I'm trying to think the last
Theories?
time we had to debate multiple people
I know,
volunteering.
it's not something we do normally just beg for more people to apply for something, to fill empty
So
seats.
may I ask?
You may, so
quickly-
if the will of the board is that we can engage, which I'm glad to, with Ms. Cutler, who is here as one of the candidates, we can do that now. And then we can make a determination at the end of that if we want to appoint her, or if we'd like to give Ms. Williams the same opportunity at the next meeting. And if she doesn't show, which she's under no obligation to do, we would then make a determination at that point.
My quick question is, since the ad hoc committee for the memorial reuse did not get dissolved today, do you have any concerns about being on both?
Okay.
Are either previous reappointments? Or are they,
No.
are you both?
No, yeah, they're both new. It's to fill, whose seat?
I forget the person's seat.
Can't remember who left the seat, yeah, but we thank them for their service. And we did that at a previous meeting. Alex, do you have any questions for Sherry?
No, I know Sherry would do it. I know Sherry, she's participated in many things in town, is with a great addition to any committee. I do always say that I like to have people come in invite them in, because oftentimes if somebody is willing to volunteer for one committee and we have this great opportunity, they may be well fitted for another committee, an opening that we don't know. So I think it just provides opportunities to give a little PR to that committee and to the person who's so generously volunteering. So I would suggest we bring them both in, but I'm also very happy and thrilled to appoint Sherry. So either way.
Okay, well, those are very good points. Those are two drastic different,
No, I know. I thought you were meaning for different, I was trying to read between the lines. And I thought that you would like to wrap this up tonight from your.
I'm always a big rapper-upper, but if it's the will of the board to give Ms. Williams one more opportunity to come in. Again, she is under no person, I don't want folks to think that they're obligated to come in here and sing for their supper. It is not their willingness. She indicated in her letter to us what her willingness was, so we have that information. I would just ask the board if they believe that having a chance to question her or giving her a chance to make the pitch in person would influence their decision, or if they are able to make a decision sooner than that. I mean, we're talking about 10 days from now, so it's not the longest waiting list.
Well, as another opportunity maybe, do we have the authority to appoint somebody as an associate member?
I have no idea.
We don't have that.
We do not.
I think it's always great.
Good
I think
question.
the commission, we can look at that for the future.
We-
It's great to have
we
a feeder.
We can. So what I'm not hearing is a burning desire to resolve this right now, unless I'm hearing incorrectly. So I would ask, do you have any pitch you want to make beyond what you've already done? Again, you are not required to come back in order to be appointed. I feel bad because you sat here, although I feel like you're like the fourth member of the select board tonight, because I keep pointing at you, but do you have anything else? I also know Sherry pretty well, and I'm grateful to you for you and your entire family's commitment to the town, but do you have anything?
I guess I'll just say the reason why I joined or put a nomination in for the Recreation Committee is one, being in a butter to that whole parcel of land. I helped with the playground, the whole splash pad area. I did the brick fundraiser for all the bricks that goes to the pathway down there, and I still have a very strong interest in that area, in all the recreation in town. My son went through all the youth sports and things like that, just that whole parcel of land, the baseball field and all of it. Just still want to be part of it, and now that I'm kind of an empty nester, I have the time. So, so it's, I have more time to
Not that
dedicate.
kept you from being involved in town before.
No, you just have more time now, right? You're not running around to youth sports, which totally takes up your life. And I commend any parent that's doing that now, because that was crazy. But, yeah,
I wasn't even going to say.
consumes your life. So that's why I had put in my interest to be on the rec committee.
Well, and we appreciate it. I think you'll be fabulous at it. If you would give us the grace of allowing us to kick it to the 7th. Again, you don't need to show up on the 7th in order to be appointed. We'll just give Ms. Williams a chance to come and make a pitch if she'd like. If not, then we can make a determination one way or the other. Is that okay with the board? Seemingly, oh, Alex has moved to a different room or shifted. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, next we up are a bunch of licenses and permits. Alex, that would be normally you to read as the clerk, but given the delay or the audio on Zoom, I'm going to yield to our colleague, Mr. Allison, to see if he can, excuse me?
Number 1 has to be tabled.
Okay, so we're going to table number 1, which is the
We
number
did
1.
not submit the permits that Kathy needs.
Sounds good. So is there a motion to table the application for public? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great, that's tabled.
All right, I move to approve special one-day beer and wine license, Bolton Fairgrounds, Inc., applications for special one-day liquor license to serve all alcohol at the Bolton Fair, August 11th through 13th, 2023, storage day being August 10th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. I'd like to move to approve application for public entertainment weekdays and Sundays, annual Bolton Fair, August 11th through 13th, 2023, Thursday 5 to 10 p.m., Friday noon to 10 p.m., Saturday 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sunday 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. at the Lancaster Fairgrounds, 318 Seven Bridge Road.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none? Oh, never mind, seeing none.
So, I believe, Kate, last year everything went really well with traffic. Are we going to use the same approach?
Yes, we are going to have something a little bit different relative to the demolition derby. So if the board is interested, I can ask Chief Hansen to put together a memo.
That'd be great.
That'd be great. Thank you. Okay, hearing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I move to approve application for public entertainment weekdays and Sundays, Bay State Antique Truck Show, ATCA, to be held on August 26th and August 27th, 2023, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Lancaster Fairgrounds, 318 Seven Bridge Road.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none.
Love the car show.
Great. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I move to approve special one-day beer and wine license, American Cancer Society Bicycles Battling Cancer Cycling Fundraiser, to be held on September 17th, 2023, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. at 132 Fort Pond Inn Road.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Great bike ride, by the way. Everyone should consider it.
Great. Awesome. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, next.
Motion to request for use of Town Green, Lancaster Historical Commission request for the use of Town Green on September 3rd, 2024.
2023.
Heather Lennon had informed us that there was an error.
So we're asking for it 1 full year in advance? Well, aren't we
One,
prepared?
a year plus.
Aren't we prepared?
From 9 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
So,
Any discussion?
sorry, I gotta ask. What happens if something else comes up that
Well, this
we
will already,
discuss?
this will already be permitted.
Is it not in our best interest? Look, I don't want to presume anything. I'm just worried about trying to
What
schedule
is the
something a
need
year in
to,
advance.
is Heather on?
Yes. I can unmute her.
Yeah.
Ask her.
Heather, is there a burning need to have this approved 13 months in advance?
Unmute.
We
Can you
did.
hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
ma'am.
Yes. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes. Okay, what's the confusion? It is on the 24th of year, the 2024, it's a year in advance. Do you know what the event is?
Well, no, that's why we unmuted you, is to ask if there's a burning reason for us to approve this 13 months in advance.
Yes. Because I have several different groups that need to have be approved to come into it. I have a lot of interest in the event.
What is the
I have
event?
to line people up. Huh?
What's the event?
Lafayette, the farewell tour.
Oh, nice.
The 200th anniversary
Yeah, okay.
of Lafayette's return to America. And
Got
I sent a letter explaining all that.
I assume by the lilt in your voice that you are wondering why we
The
didn't.
correct date.
Yeah, that's why we're voting on it. Yep. That sounds great. Well, you've answered our question. Thank you, Heather. Any further?
Yes, now I have a question for you.
Well, okay, we're in the middle of a motion though, so this,
Okay,
does it impact our motion?
well, I just wonder if you care to participate yourself.
Well, not knowing who the board will be by September of 2024, we could definitely consider that at a later date.
All right, thank you
Awesome.
very much.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Alex, muted herself. We
I
are,
just asked her to unmute. Alex, you should be able to unmute.
okay, we are,
Sorry about that.
are you an aye?
I'm an aye.
Good, great, next.
Move to approve application for use of the town green and gazebo, Lancaster Friends of the Seniors Community Event, Vance Gilbert Concert, to be held on September 23rd, 2023, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Yes, and I just want to speak to that.
Yes,
We need a second.
and you are. We need a second
You
first.
need to know who
We
I
need a
am
second,
again?
we need a second first.
Go ahead.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion or any questions of the audience?
Okay.
Okay. Do you have something you'd like to say on the motion?
Yes. All right, I'm Denise Hurley, 102 Bolton Road.
Yeah.
I'm the president of the Lancaster, Friends of the Lancaster Seniors. This is a free community event for that day, and it's open to everybody. Vance Gilbert is a well-known folk singer, and the Friends are bringing him out to perform, and we may have a couple other people coming out to folk music.
That sounds great.
So just wanted to get it out there.
That's fantastic.
That's what we're going to be doing for that day for the community.
Awesome, and we appreciate that. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All
You
right?
have your permit. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, new business, we already did special town meeting date. Old business, we have North Lancaster Development Update.
Yes, so all I wanted to say is that we are still waiting on the 40R language to come back from the AG, and that the enterprise rezone did go through, as you know, but the AG is still taking the time to review all of the notifications, et cetera, that have gone along with that. And so I know that there was some litigation filed between the parties, but the holdup is not related to that, at least that we are being told. It's in the 40R. However, they are going through the MIPA review, so that is still ongoing. And hopefully by September, we will have something back from them.
That sounds great. Any questions about that? Hearing none?
Yeah. No, Steve, always a question, right? I didn't realize they had filed for MIPA. Is that something that they've already filed for, because usually people comment on that?
So this is the environmental protection review for the watershed. So, yeah, so they actually applied for that in April. I guess it's just been going on for many, many months. I haven't received any documentation from the state, which is not really unusual. Sometimes we don't get it for months. But anything that the office would receive, I would pass along to you all. I did talk to Jasmine and ask her, and she hasn't heard anything back from the state either. I'm sorry, Jasmine Farinacci, our planning director. So.
Okay. All right.
Okay, fantastic. Town administrator review, Mr. Allison, at the
Yes.
previous meeting we asked you to run that
So,
process.
Mr. Kerrigan and Ms. Turner, both of you, did you both receive the
Yes.
2 documents?
Yes.
Alex?
I received the list. I didn't have a chance to look at it, but I received it, yep.
Okay, so my hope as part of this meeting is to do 2 things. The first is to agree on the process and talk about the actual review. So Alex, are you comfortable voting on approving the process, right? What we're going to, what the process is for the review? I couldn't send the documents ahead of time because of
It would be
deliberation.
deliberation.
I know you want to deliver, yeah, so I know that's awkward. I saw it came in, I had a chance to open it. I've been working with Comcast to make sure this meeting could actually happen for me because there's horrible connections today. But I'm sure that you're well seasoned, Jason, and I trust that you have a good process set forward.
Okay, so you feel comfortable that the process that's outlined is good, and then we can do a motion. I don't want you to not feel that you can't contribute to the process that we will use.
As I said, I haven't looked at that, but I know that we had talked about this kind of thing in the past, so don't think if you want to defer it until I.
No, I want to move forward. So I'll make a motion to approve the process as outlined in the 2 documents I sent for the town administrator review.
Sounds good. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion other than what we just had? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All right, the second part of this is actually conducting the review. So I guess I'd like to ask if any member of the board would like to recuse themselves from the town administrator review voluntarily.
I can speak for myself that I don't feel a need to recuse myself. No.
All right, so I'm sorry, Alex, were you saying something?
I'm not sure what you're getting at, Jason, but
Okay, so I guess, so Mr. Chair, what I'd like to do is I'd like to have the authority to speak with council to determine, if there is an existing potential conflict of interest or perceived conflict of interest that could ensure that, the board can adequately review our town administrator.
So I would say, sure, yes, speak with appropriate counsel. And if you don't have their contact information, I do. The most important thing to me is to make sure that Kate gets the review that she deserves and is due to her contract, and to make sure that we give her feedback with all due haste. So I would hope that you would have that conversation.
So we got 2 things. So to recap, the first is we approve the process to be used, and then
Yes.
I'm authorized to speak to council about the actual review itself.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Next 3 items, Ms. Turner, are items that you had on the agenda previous, vendor fees and fairgrounds, use surcharge, energy committee update and membership analysis, and earth removal permit fees. You can take them in any order you wish.
okay, so I'm trying to see if I get it. So let me start with the easy one, I believe the easiest one. Everybody knows that our energy commission has not met in a long time. We talked about that, and there was a discussion about whether or not we needed to have one. And the cities and towns that I contacted locally, many of them have, a few have disbanded them, a few of them have things. We have a unique situation. We have the Climate Coalition, which is advocates for energy conservation. So my suggestion would be that to the board that we follow what Harvard does and some other towns, that if the board feels it would be helpful to have them merely look over and prepare for bids for the, oh my gosh, I can't remember the word, the collective energy to help out to the state or help the consolidation, what do you call it? I'm sorry.
Is it the aggregation program?
Thank you, yes. Going forward, that would be, seems to be the model that a lot are using successfully, although not 100% necessary, but I think it would be helpful to have eyes on that. But
Can I ask you a couple questions? The membership and out, so part of my question to you on when you took over this task was to figure out, because they haven't met, and to be very clear to the townspeople, like the select board doesn't choose when they meet. This is up to the committee, and they haven't met, I think, since, is it 2021? 2020?
2020.
yeah, some of the members aren't even.
2020.
So I don't know, so I guess my question is, I don't know that we can ask them to engage in this process if we don't know, if some of the members aren't, I mean, it seems like an entirely inactive committee.
No, I'm sorry, I wouldn't suggest that we ask them. I would just formally disband the committee. And if we were going to reinstate a committee, you'd do it the traditional way, recruit people and just ask for their.
That sounds
for
good.
a chat.
All right,
Right.
I'm with you on that. So is there a motion to disband the energy committee?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Sorry, procedurally, do we have to inform them, even though it's been years? How does that work?
I believe we just informed them.
Right,
I
well,
believe we just informed them, but you're welcome
okay,
to.
okay. Well, no, I
They
mean,
no longer-
some have right.
They've not exercised any authority on behalf of the town in years, so they seem to have ceded that, so.
Got it.
But certainly, if you can find them, let them know.
Well, no, I was just going through my notes. I think
Yeah.
Ayla said she was gonna meet with them, but we don't even know who they are, right?
Well, we know who the chair is, and I think, Alex, you can take care of notifying the chair.
I
Yeah.
know the good one.
Yeah.
Yes, I can tell them.
Go to the next room and inform the chair that it's been disbanded.
But just to follow up, and maybe you want to do that at a later meeting after you've had a chance to think about it or not. I think there is a role for a different sort of ad hoc committee or a committee to help with the aggregation.
Sure.
Very limited, but that was all.
No, I don't disagree. I think it just needs a very clear charge and refresh. And I'd be willing to entertain that at a later date. But this committee is in essence defunct and now it's been disbanded. So thank you for the work you did on that. Thank you. Vendor fees and fairgrounds use surcharge? Sorry, or earth removal permit fees.
Well, what I did was I contacted, oh my God, it's laborious, numerous cities and towns, and asked them about how they did it. It's funny, because 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth, and there's about 351 different approaches. Many of them don't have earth removal or quarrying operations, but you'd be surprised by some that do. For example, Swampscott and places that you wouldn't think of, at least I didn't. So what I came away from this, I also had a discussion with Dick Trussell as speaking on behalf of the Finance Committee, because they had meetings that I've attended to and so on, talked about fees. And there's a wide range. I will say our fees on most things that I've compared to, we are low, and I think it offers an opportunity for the board to help out the taxpayers by looking at these again. But I think it's probably done, because it's a big job, I think it's probably done comprehensively. So my suggestion would be to get a group together similar to the Taxpayers Committee, where you had and a very finite focused charge to look at fees, and we can limit it to certain sectors. But I think it probably, if you start doing this benchmarking, done with all fees and revenues. I know that Dick Trussell spoke to being excited about participating in that, but it's too much for the Finance Committee to do it every meeting, so the suggestion was that we send representatives and solicit some others to do it. I can get into the specifics, but towns, for example, Brimfield, that has a flea market, much bigger scale than Halon there. But they bring some decent revenues, $90,000 a year.
I mean, the Brimfield Fair is somewhat unique, but.
It is, and I've talked to Topsfield about, some of the challenges in doing, but I could go into this. Obviously, we don't want to sit for hours and talk about my findings.
My question to you is, could you, you are right, we don't want to sit for hours to talk about them, but I wouldn't mind reading them. So could you consolidate them into a communique to the board, and then we can have a conversation at a future meeting about potentially scheduling a working group to look at fees and recommendations to work with the town administrator?
More of an executive summary kind of thing would be.
Fantastic. So whenever you've got something, send it in through me to the board, and then we will schedule it for discussion at a future meeting. I would say, Kate, in the future, let's just do sort of review of fees as an agenda item rather than breaking them out to the different things. Does that sound good?
Yes, and this is something that we have talked about.
Yes, we have. Yep.
It's not new.
No. I appreciate you taking the task on. That and the incredibly difficult task of serving as our designee to the Freight Study Guiding Committee. You really have taken on some of the critical items of the day, so thank you.
Heavy lifting there.
Yeah, including you're like carrying freight for us, literally. Okay. Nothing more under old business. Communications, our next meeting will be held on Monday, August 7th, 2023. And then we are going into executive session, yes?
Yes.
So.
Not to make it.
We are going to be going into executive session, not to reconvene an open session thereafter. Is there a motion to be read?
I move to have the select board enter executive session pursuant to MGL, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct a strategy session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, including the positions of collector treasurer, recreation coordinator, and budget and purchasing administrator, and not to reconvene in open session thereafter.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we are going into executive session.
Gonna vote.
Oh, sorry.
Aye.
Aye. Well, there we are. We're going into executive session. Thanks, everybody. We will see you on the 7th.